Welcome to Shamrock Reddit Stories, where an entitled parent breaks OP's wrist and runs away, leaving her kids behind. This one's from the brains of the group, and it's called, You've Waited 6 Months, but do you mind if Karen goes first? So this happened a long time ago. I worked in the MRI department of a big National Health Service hospital as a receptionist. We had 3 MRI scanners. On a particular afternoon of the week, we offered same-day access for a certain private patient clinic. The patients in that clinic required an MRI scan as a part of their workup, and the MRI department was happy to get the money generated. Because the MRIs were effectively done on demand, we were able to charge 2 to 3 times the usual fee, which worked out to about £1,500 per MRI. The extra money allowed us to fund additional MRI lists for National Health Service patients who needed urgent scans. These extra MRIs were slotted in between the booked National Health Service MRIs, where the National Health Service patients have waited 4 to 6 months for a routine MRI, oh my God, and 2 to 3 weeks for an urgent MRI. It was made clear to the private patients that they were being fitted in around patients with a booked appointment time, so they wouldn't get their scan the minute they walked in. It would usually be a 20-minute wait at most. I had worked in the MRI department for about a year, and the vast majority of the same-day private patients were actually well-behaved and appreciated having their scan on the same day as seeing the consultant. Naturally, we had the occasional complaint about waiting times, but usually they were a result of some of the MRIs taking longer or one of the MRI scanners breaking down. And then there was Karen. I'd worked in the department for about 8 months at this time, just long enough for me to know how lippy I could get with a patient and not get into trouble. The morning had not started off well. One of the MRI scanners had broken down, so we were trying to run 3 lists with only 2 scanners, and one of the other MRI scanners had a fault that had to be fixed. So by 1 p.m., just as the first private patient was due to arrive, we were nearly 2 hours behind and had 7 National Health Service patients whose appointment times had already come and gone. Karen came in with her MRI form. I check her in and explain the current situation to her. I let her know she is likely to wait about 45 minutes. She huffs and puffs, but sits down. About 10 minutes later, Karen comes up to the desk and asks how much longer she is going to have to wait. I tell her it's likely to be 35 minutes. Karen comes up 10 minutes later. I tell her the wait will be about 25 minutes. Just before she sits down, the next National Health Service patient gets called in for their scan. Karen trips off the line at this and demands to know why she wasn't called in for her scan. Why was someone called in ahead of her? I explained to her what she already knew, and that the patient that was just called in had a booked appointment. Karen demanded to be the next person called in. I explained to her that there were 2 more patients ahead of her, and then she would be called in. Karen, paraphrasing, I don't see why I have to wait. I'm paying £1,500 for this MRI. These people are getting it for free. Me, they have been waiting 6 months for this MRI. You've been waiting 20 minutes. Karen, since they've already waited 6 months, they won't mind waiting another half an hour. Me, let's find out. Then loudly to the waiting room, Ladies and gentlemen, this private patient has asked if she can cut in front of all of you since she is paying for this MRI, and you've already waited 6 months, so another 30 minutes won't matter to you. Do any of you have an issue if she goes in next? I have never seen anyone sit down so quickly and shut up so completely. Seamus thinks that the entitled patient put herself in the line of fire of a waiting room full of National Health Service patients, which could have resulted in a riotous verbal assault. This one is from BDay041008, and it's called, Entitled Parent Breaks My Wrist, Says It's My Fault, and Tries to Run Away. This story happened when I was still a teenager. One day in May, I was walking home from school and listening to my music from my iPad Touch. Remember those? It was starting to get hot when I decided to stop at a nearby restaurant because my school was a long 2 miles away from my house. As I walked into the place, I saw this woman, entitled parent, who gave me a real dirty look and said something to her kids. I just ignored her. I ordered a smoothie and looked over to entitled parent, and she was nowhere to be seen. I just saw her kids sitting at the table. So I walked over to one of those tables and started to sit down, and then someone took my chair out from under me, and I fell to the concrete ground. I felt an awful pain in my left hand and saw that it was dislocated to the right side. Part of my bone was about to break my skin, and actually, that's enough details. I looked up to see the entitled parent clearly with the chair in her hand. And these weren't the normal kind of chairs. They were the kind of chairs that were tall. And to make matters even worse, my iPod hit the ground, shattering the screen, and my arm got cut. Entitled parent: I need this for my kids, and you did that to yourself. Me: what I said next contained a lot of bad words, so I'm just going to leave that part out. Why did you think that was a good idea? You broke my wrist. I was in pain on the ground, clutching my wrist with blood coming out of my right shoulder from the iPod touchscreen I fell on. A woman who was also there was helping me. Then the cashier approached the entitled parent. Cashier: Miss, we're going to have to call security on you. The restaurant was in a small mall. Entitled parent: I'm innocent. He fell by himself. I needed this for my kids. Cashier: Everyone here clearly saw you take the chair from under him. Meanwhile, some employee in the back called an ambulance. The woman who was with me helped me get up and walk outside. The entitled parent started to stutter, and then look around. Then she just started running. The cashier followed her and just barely got a picture of her license plate. Also, the entitled parent left her purse with her ID and her children at her table. I watched her get into her car, which was parked in a fire lane no less, and speed off. The ambulance eventually came, and the hospital put my wrist into a cast and put a bandage over my shoulder. When I told my parents, they were mad. The police found this woman in less than half an hour because she got pulled over for speeding not even 10 minutes after. When they caught her, she denied everything. One look at the security camera revealed that entitled parent was lying. She was put on trial for not only assaulting me, trying to run away, and lying to the police. In her car, drugs and alcohol were found. I forgot how much she was fined because I put it aside for college, but I'm pretty sure that it was a lot. My parents got me an iPhone for Christmas because entitled parent never paid for the iPod. Moral of the story: don't be a dumb butt or you'll be used for karma on the internet and be in prison. Edit. What makes me laugh about this story was that I was listening to Best Day of My Life by American authors. Okay, that is funny. Or maybe ironic. Yeah, let's go with that. That's really ironic. Doesn't everyone outgrow pulling chairs out from under people who are about to sit down at around age 14? Also, this entitled woman just put herself out of the running for Mother of the Year with her bailing on her kids in such a spectacular way. Seamus is shaking his head so hard, he's about to lose his hat. Come to think of it, I don't think that I've ever seen him without his hat on, even inside. This one is from Purple Po Po Po, and it's called, Aren't You Ashamed of Playing Health Police? First, I want to apologize for any mistakes in my text, as English is not my first language. Also, I'm writing this on my phone, so the format might be messy. Sorry. I'm a 23-year-old female, and I work as an assistant in a kind of charity focusing on the history of suburbs and challenging neighborhoods of Paris, France. Basically, my work is to take pictures of monuments and architecture that tell a story of the evolution of these cities that surround the capital. It's an interesting job, and I quite enjoyed it, even though it's very low pay and very disorganized. I also create visuals for various events and projects relating to this organization. Today, though, my work was to manage the entrance of a building in which my organization was hosting an event, a theater festival of sorts. I was asked to scan everyone's health pass, a mandatory QR code which attests that everyone has been vaccinated, and guide them to the rooms where the various shows were taking place. At first, everything was going okay. Some people were obviously grumpy when I asked them to put on their masks and show me their passes, but no one was actually really rude. At one point, a family of 4, a mother, father, and their 2 kids, showed up. The mother will be EM for Entitled Mom. I said hi to them and asked them if they were coming in for a show, to which Entitled Mom answered yes. She started making her way to the entrance, and I simply stepped closer to her and asked her, "Ma'am, I have to check your pass." I was cordial and smiling. At that moment, I didn't even register that none of them were wearing masks. To my simple request, Entitled Mother answered, "We just realized that we don't have our passes." This didn't really make sense, because the only reason you wouldn't have a pass would be if you didn't get vaccinated. In this case, nobody would come up and inform you of the fact that you don't have a pass, because, well, you didn't do what is required to get one. Anyway, I didn't get the chance to think of this or even respond to her, as she started to get agitated and yelled at me and my colleague. Entitled Mom: "My daughter is playing in a show today. Are you going to keep me from seeing my daughter play?" I was taken aback, and again, didn't get a chance to respond to her. Entitled Mom again: "Do you not realize that you're excluding people? This is social exclusion. And you're here playing health police. Aren't you ashamed of yourselves?" At this point, I reacted rather angrily. I know I didn't handle the situation correctly, but I was never good at staying calm when getting yelled at. Also, I must point out that handling the public is absolutely not something I'm used to doing, and I never was told that I would have to do such a thing when I took on the job. So being the hot-headed mess that I am, I started yelling myself. "Ma'am, I'm simply doing my job. I don't particularly like having to tell people what to do, and I especially don't like getting screamed at by total strangers. I'm doing what I've been asked to do. This is a social event, and the law requires that people present a valid pass and wear masks to attend." At this point, a wave of people started to rush toward my colleague and I tried to manage scanning them and pointing them in the right direction while the woman was still screaming. Entitled Mom: "This is an outrage. Are we going to stay silent regarding this? Are we going to keep on being puppets? Are you happy with what you're doing to people?" I was trembling, and people were giving strange looks, probably not really understanding what was going on. It was very embarrassing. Eventually, I yelled at the woman and her husband to move it, since they were disturbing everyone. Then, the Entitled Mom insulted me, but I didn't really register it. Her guy gave me a salute. I guess he was mocking me for playing health police, and flipped me the bird in front of the crowd and his own children. I kind of lost it at this point and very loudly told him, "Stick it up your frickin' butt, you donkey." I know, that was absolutely unprofessional of me. The lady who I was trying to scan at the moment told me, "There's no reason to get so worked up." I replied, "Try to react gracefully when someone gives you the finger. Enjoy the show." She wasn't pleased with my response, and I understand why. I was so rattled. The family ended up leaving after all, which left my colleague and I dumbstruck. My colleague told me that she was used to people like this, having worked at Burger King for years and all. She also told me not to be too hard on myself, that desensitization about these things only happens after multiple encounters with such people. I called my boss and told her what happened. Remember Entitled Mom telling me that her daughter was playing in one of the shows? Well, it turns out it was a frickin' lie. My boss asked every female comedian if their mother and siblings were attending, and nobody knew them. This was the first real encounter with entitled anti-health laws people that I ever had. It may not have been very special or entertaining, but it sure left me very shaken and made me tear up. Oh, OP. Anytime a story involves anyone saying to an entitled member of an entitled family to, quote, stick it up your frickin' butt, you donkey, that makes the story both special and entertaining. You did great. Right, Seamus? Careful, buddy. Don't nod your head so hard. You're about to lose your hat again. Well, that's it, folks. Until next time.